Hello, adventuresses, and welcome to the podcast show for women who love horses, travel, and adventure. Today, I'm speaking to Emma from the UK, and let me tell you, this lady is my hero. She has done so many cool and amazing things. I mean, she's taken some of her horses, which she trained at Liberty, to a small island in Ireland, and she actually trained 2 young ones to also be at Liberty on this island. She was even hunting for fish to survive. I mean, she was pretty hardcore. And she filmed it, she made a documentary out of this experience, and that's not the only adventure she's done. She also has recently got back from a trip in Europe where she put 2 little Shetland ponies in the back of a tricycle, and she was just bicycling around in Europe, showing people, how much fun horses can be. And she's also had an adventure in Scotland. Also a very interesting story about how she went, I think, over a week, across 100 miles with 2 horses which hadn't been broke when she bought them, but by the end of the ride she was able to ride them both at Liberty. Pretty darn impressive, so you're definitely not going to want to miss this episode. Before we get started, I just want to make one quick announcement, and that is, please go and check out our YouTube channel. It is live now. I've been traveling a lot this year, filming in really cool destinations. I'm actually literally in an hour about to get on a plane to Greenland, of all places. So I've been traveling and filming and meeting a lot of really cool women and capturing their stories on film so that you guys can watch it, and it's all for free. I'm doing this and you can watch it and it's for free and it's on YouTube, so just please go to our YouTube channel. It's Equestrian Adventuress, and subscribe so you don't miss any of the episodes. It's going to take me a little while to edit all of these episodes, but we will be releasing them, and we have a lot of really small, fun videos out all ready for you to watch. So just hit the subscribe button and share this with your friends. If you've enjoyed it, just, share it with your friends, leave some comments, tell us where you'd like us to film next, and yeah, that helps us a lot. And cue the music. We are explorers. We are trailblazers. We love to do what cannot be done. We love to test our limits, cross borders, and we love the freedom horses bring us. We seek lands without fences. Who are we? We are Equestrian Adventuresses. We are a community of women who love horses, travel, and adventure.
To infinity and beyond!
And now your host, Crystal Kelly.
Hello, adventuresses, and today I'm talking to Emma, and like me, we're sitting in the UK together, and she's got a whole lot of cool stories she's going to share with us. But first, I just want to say hello, Emma.
Hiya.
So, just before we get into I know you just got back a couple of weeks ago from traveling around on some really interesting adventures. I've seen your videos and stuff. So, before I get into that, how did you get into horses? And then how did you start traveling with horses?
Right, okay, we're going back that far. Great.
Yeah, forward, yeah.
Okay, so my godmother gave me my first pony she used to breed Welsh mountain ponies. And so as a christening present, she gave me a little unbacked Welsh Section A pony. And so that was kind of my first pony. Obviously, I don't actually remember that long ago. But yeah, and then my dad used to do some eventing and just had family ponies, really. He had a Welsh cob and he did some work to get another pony. So we always had a couple of ponies at home. He gave up eventing before I was born, so I don't remember that part of it. And then, we had sort of ponies at home, but it was never a sort of big deal. I never did pony club really, or I went twice, I think. My parents aren't sort of into driving me around the pony club circuit or anything like that, which is really great. I'm sort of happy about that. But yeah, they were always just kind of around, and if we wanted to ride my old pony, I could. And I only lost her a few years ago at how old was she? 38, I think, when I lost her. So yeah, it was really nice. So I had her all my life, which was really cool. And then when I was 15, I left school. I'm really dyslexic, so I didn't find academic stuff really easy. I would love to have been a vet. That would have been really cool, but I'm just not brainy enough. So I was like, I want to be a horse trainer. And my dad was like, oh, great. Definitely wasn't as happy as when I said I wanted to be a vet the year earlier. But, and he kind of was, I'm a pretty determined person, so he was kind of okay about it. But he said,
Was it sort of that, I don't know, the parents, when they're very protective and they love their kids, is it kind of that attitude of like, oh, well, you're not going to make money training horses, and that's why you should be a vet? Or, was he worried about you being a horse trainer, or was it just...
Oh, I don't know. We don't really have that kind of relationship. I think he probably just thought it would be a better paid job and I'd have more security and it would be less risky, probably. It's kind of, I don't know, I guess, every parent would like their child, if their child turns around and says they'd like to be a doctor or a vet or something like that, they think, yes, great, do that. Horse trainer is probably not second on the list because it's quite dangerous, or can be quite dangerous, and all that, all that stuff. But yeah, so when I left school, I said I wanted to be a horse trainer, and we didn't have any facilities, so we just had a couple of little stables for my ponies in the sort of old farm buildings. They weren't like proper stables or anything. We didn't have a sound school or nothing, no horse facilities at all. But I managed to convince this little old lady who lived down the road to let me back her horse for her. And she said, well, how much do you charge? I was like, oh, I have no idea. I don't know if I can do it yet. So anyway, she let me have her pony. And he was a Welsh section D. And I remember, I'd never had any lessons in it or anything. So I just was making it up as I go along. And I remember doing what we'd now call desensitizing. So I desensitized this pony to the point where this pony was literally begging me to get on. He was he was like, for God's sake, will you just get on, And I remember I jumped on him in the middle of the field, with my other ponies in the field as well, because I didn't have anything else. And I sat on him and I thought, how'd you get him to go? And for me, that was kind of like the sort of pinnacle point, because it was like, wow, this is just an amazing challenge. From that point on, I knew that whatever from the moment you first sit on a young horse, you have this whole open book that you could teach them anything. Like literally, I could, and now I teach them to steer by putting you can give them buttons in all sorts of funny places and do all sorts of funny things. But at 15, that was just so cool to have that sort of realization. And it kind of carried on from there, really, my love affair with training horses.
Okay, so I'm a horse trainer as well, and I definitely agree with you when you have these young horses, and it's like you said, an open book. And so, are you teaching your horses special buttons that only you know, so no one else can handle them, or?
Yeah, I don't let anyone ride my horses anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But no, just for my own amusement, really, and because it's interesting, for different reasons. I taught one horse to stop when I squeezed with my legs, which I thought was funny at the time, but then I realised it was quite annoying, because your sort of muscle memory automatically, anyway, it's very, after some very, very fast stops, I thought that wasn't really good. My thought process behind it was, I had this dream of wanting to be able to canter along bareback and reinless along the beach. I thought, what am I going to do if I get frightened? I'm going to grip like hell. So I thought, what a good idea. If that gripping like hell meant stop to the horse, it might, we might save us both. And anyway, it turned out to be not quite such a great way of teaching them. So yeah, it was kind of all through fun and trial and error, and just the pleasure of doing it, really.
Okay, well, that sounds like fun. So then what was, the next step? When did you start taking this abroad?
Okay, so, yeah, when I was 18, I went to Australia for a few months and was sort of working with horses and horsemen who were out in Western Australia. And they did some really cool horsemanship. And I kind of got to sort of, throw away the English. They sort of laughed at my britches. I remember just thinking, oh, this is so cool, And then I stayed there, and I used to go back every year for a while, which was really fun. And I had to keep going home to earn a living because I didn't have, money support from anyone. So I had to keep earning my money as I went. And I came back and then thought, I need to be an event rider, really, because, in England, it's quite a conventional world, and it certainly was back then. Everyone, it's hard to get horses sent to you if you're not eventing or show jumping or doing dressage. So I sort of went down that road, and sort of enjoyed. I worked nights at an old people's home, and I became a swimming teacher to sort of fund horses, because I always had my own horses. I was quite obsessed with sort of collecting them, so I needed to fund them as well. And then it kind of just carried on from there. And I did lots. I don't know how long you want me to waffle on, but I went to Germany and rode for an event rider, and then rode in Portugal for a while, and was lucky enough to sort of go behind the scenes with some of the Portuguese riders at school there, which was really cool. And I really loved that sort of classical seat and I really learned a lot there, which was great.
Sorry, at this point, were you like a working student, or were you traveling with the competitions, or what was this like?
And I kind of just, I was kind of working my butt off in return for lessons, basically, and then would just be there for a while. And then, when I felt like I needed to come home and see my own horses and do some work and sort of grow, start my own business, then I'd keep coming home. So I'd only sort of go for short periods of time, a month here or a month there. Australia was like 3 months at a time. But, I needed to earn money to pay for my dog and my horses and everything else. So I had to keep coming home. And, so it was very much working.
And were these, contexts that you had met somewhere, or did you find them online? Was it sort of a leap into the unknown?
No, this is back. I'm that old. It's crazy. This is back when I actually wrote to them with a pen and paper. I wrote to these people and asked them, and I picked up the telephone and rang. Long ago.
We don't do that anymore.
There was no Facebook. No, there was no such thing as Facebook at all. So I just went completely blind to these people, and had no contact other than that in the old-fashioned way. It was pure adventure. It wasn't like I could just check them out on Facebook and know everything first.
Amazing. So then you're traveling around as a hardworking, kind of a working student, it sounds like, and then when do people start coming to you, and when do you start getting things on your own? So from 19 I started up training horses properly for people and filled up my yard, and I got a sort of good reputation for training problem horses for people. I did lots of, now I wouldn't call them problem horses, I'd call them challengers, but back then they were problem horses because they used to buck everyone off and rear and nap, and I used to really enjoy that challenge. They would sort of come, and it was great working with the owners, and I thought nothing was more exciting than getting on a horse that wanted to send me flying, or wouldn't go down the road. Or I really enjoyed that sort of puzzle. To me, they were always like a little jigsaw puzzle that I had to just get all the pieces, or like a Rubik's cube. You got to get all the colours lined up, and then it looks right and works right. And I really loved the challenge of that, and I did that for a long time until one horse came in, and I went to a show actually. So I was sort of eventing on the side as well. But I went to a show, and this poor kid was just getting bucked off this horse over and over again. And I watched, and I'm quite a shy person, so I was just watching, thinking, I could help this girl. Anyway, one last time she got bucked off, and I thought, that's it, I'm going in. So I jumped over the wall and went in the arena with this girl, and I ran around with her around this show jumping course to help her, because it was just so embarrassing. She was crying and everything else. And I said, look, send your horse to me, come as well, and we'll fix him up, because everyone knew this horse. He was called Tom, and everyone knew him. And as soon as you mentioned him, it was like, oh, Tom, and like it is, like horses get a reputation on the circuit, sort of thing. And he came to my house, and he turned out absolutely brilliant. He was great fun, a really talented horse. But everywhere you went, even when he was being brilliant and doing great stuff, and they were winning competitions and doing all really good things, he was still always known as this horse. Oh, Tom, he used to drive me mad. So I thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring him into my house through the back door, and I lay him down in front of the Christmas tree, and I took a photograph of him lying under my Christmas tree. And this is back like a long time ago. And I made it into a Christmas card to raise some money for the Brook charity. And it went completely viral online and in the papers. It went everywhere, all around the world. And now it's still What's Under Your Tree This Christmas. It still comes out every year. But from that moment on, everyone knew that horse as, Tom, the horse that I under the Christmas tree. So just through doing that one photograph, we changed his thing. And I thought, wow, how powerful is that? That if you could make people smile with horses, you could change the whole perspective on how we look at them. I was like, great, I'm going to do that for a living instead. Wow.
So that is now how I do what I do.
Perfect. So let's go ahead and we'll fast forward a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Let's get into some of your more recent adventures.
Okay, so in 2015, or maybe it's end of 2014, I was having a conversation with my brother, who's not horsey at all, and I said to him, this training horses stuff is very good, but it's very tiring. I'm very tired to being at home because I'd have 6 or 8 horses at one time. And it's a bit like a conveyor belt. They come, you train them, they go, and so on. And because they all come at sort of for different lengths of time, I'm constantly here. I have to be here to obviously train them and work with them. And he said to me, well, if you want to do adventures and you want to do something different, you're going to have to just pick a date and then quit doing that. And obviously you can imagine, earning a living, it's quite scary to suddenly go, I'm now not doing that anymore because that's my complete income. And I remember thinking, can I do that? Because I have my own horses to pay for. I had, I don't know, 6 or 8 horses at the time.
And did you have some kind of security net or some kind of savings? Or
No, nothing at all. Literally nothing at all. No, we don't have savings. No, I just thought I want to do that. So that's what I'm going to do. And I've always had this mindset of if you chase the dream, the money will appear. If you chase the money, it's all going to go kaput and you'll never do your dream. You just have to work really hard. So I thought, well, I'm just going to do it. So on the 22nd of September, I quit training horses for people. I sent them all home. I didn't take in any more. And the week later, I booked the island, which was my first adventure. So the island was a 78-acre remote island off the west coast of Ireland in Connemara National Park. And I wanted to take 4 of my trained Connemara Liberty ponies and 2 unbacked, unhandled, like they weren't halter broken or anything, Connemara ponies, and turn them all loose on the island and be dumped on there myself with just a packet of rice and see if I could train the ponies without any tack or equipment, without any head collars, no ropes, no nothing, and survive and fish for my food. And so that's what I did. That was my first adventure.
So that's a pretty... So most people, when they would quit their jobs, they just, I don't know, go and backpack around Cambodia or something. I mean, you came up with this idea to do something which, I don't really know any people doing something like that. So how did you come up with this idea? And then, when you told people your idea, what did they think?
Well, they laughed at first and thought I was joking, I think, or some sort of crazy. And my dad thought it was completely mental. And I suppose because it was 2 things, because it was the sort of survival aspect of it as well, because I only had rice and a spear gun and a fishing rod. So that was kind of sort of one aspect of it. And I hadn't done anything survivally before either. I had no idea how to go spearfishing. I tried once before I left for the island, but I just ended up watching a couple of videos on YouTube and then went to the island. And thought I'll figure it out because I'll get hungry enough and I'll have to. But when you do these things, it's kind of, when I came up with the idea, for me, it's now I don't like leaving my own horses, so I want to do things with my own horses because I've enjoyed working with them, and I'm still trying to develop how far I can get with horses and how far I can develop my relationship with horses. So it had to be my own horses. So I had to find, obviously then I'm limited to how far away from home I can go. But it seemed like the perfect place to me because they were able to be completely free. So obviously no round pen, no fences, no nothing. And they didn't need me. They were completely self-sufficient. So they had water on the island. There was loads of grass. They didn't need me in the slightest. So as far as working at Liberty, there wasn't any reason for them to interact with me. They had no purpose to interact with me at all. They could just go off if they wanted to. And I wanted to see how that changed and develop my relationship with them, whether they would just go, well, great, see you later. Or whether they would still come and enjoy working with me. And also then obviously from that point, could I then train these unbacked ponies? Could I teach them to follow me, to work as part of my team? And could I back a horse at Liberty with no rope, no fence, no nothing? Because I think when you're at home, so when you're at home and you're trying to do Liberty, or you're working with a horse that's completely loose, in a round pen, even if you do nothing, or in a sound school, when you do nothing, if I just stood in there for long enough, the horse at some point would realise it needed me. Or if I was in the sound school, at some point they'd need me. If I was in one of my paddocks or fields, whatever, at some point they know I have to turn the tap on for them to give them water, so they need me. Whereas on the island, it was the only place I could find, at the top of my head, where they would be completely safe, because that's obviously where they've come from, but they didn't need me. And so that was the attraction of the place. the challenge.
So it sounds to me like every girl's sort of the movie The Black Stallion, you know, like this is every girl's fantasy when we're growing up. Like, I wish I was on an island and the bond with me and the horse. And, you know, when you actually are there and you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. How did it work? Or did it work? You know, did you get there and you're like, oh my God, I'm really hungry. And the horses don't even want to be on the same side of the island as me. You know, what was the beginning stages like?
Yeah, so it was kind of quite surreal because obviously we were making it into film as well. So I was kind of having to film myself, which added another element. So I was really, really busy. So from the moment I got off the boat, and I mean, I suppose even just getting there was quite entertaining because obviously my ponies had never been on a landing craft boat before. So that was quite fun. And obviously the two unhandled ones were shut in a trailer, so they couldn't obviously jump out or jump off the boat or do anything crazy. So that was kind of the first thing that was a bit uncertain. But then once I was on the island, you know, lots of people, I had to do a sort of speak to somebody to make sure I wasn't going to go crazy because the film company were worried that being that many days on my own, I'd go mad. And I just got on the island and remember thinking, I'm not going to go mad. This is just brilliant. I could stay here forever. But it was like the most amazing detox. I mean, I'm quite addicted to tea and, you know, I like chocolate and things like that. And so to go from that to completely nothing bar rice and cockles and fish with like a catch was quite a drop. I mean, I lost a lot of weight. But to be honest, I never felt fitter or stronger ever before then or since, to be fair. It was great. And I absolutely loved the challenge. And yeah, it was felt most at home that I've ever felt anywhere, really. The ponies were outside my tent every morning at 5 o'clock, chomping away. My team ponies were always there, and I could really use them. You know, basically the idea was to use them to help me train the others. So, for example, if I'm riding one of my Connemara ponies, and everywhere on the island was really rough. Okay, so there's nowhere, like it's not like a flat field we could just ride around in a circle or anything. Everywhere is really rough, like there's rocks and boulders and, you know, up steep hill and down steep hill. So with the team ponies, I was riding one of them and I could call the others and my other team ponies would come and say like the new ponies wanted to, you know, gallop off or something to the other side of the island. I could control my guys enough just by breathing out to stop, that the 4 ponies that I'd been working with at home, they knew what that meant and they obviously stayed with me. And so then I already had a way of communicating with the new ponies, because if you imagine I'm sitting on mine and I've got, you know, 4 of them around me, the others, we all canter off in one direction and I breathe out and stop. I'm already stopping the other 2 because they're like, hey, why aren't you 4 coming? And because they're younger than my team ponies, they have a bigger say over the wild ponies, if you like, than I did. So, yeah, I hope that's all making sense. But I could influence them by using my herd that I already had with me to really start a communication and start a way of giving them cues, different things. So quite quickly I could like trot along and breathe out and they would pick it up and stop. And they were like, okay, I get it. Okay, every time we hear her breathe out, we're supposed to stop. And things like that. So I could really manipulate the sort of herd to help me. And they were brilliant, you know, they were great because in the morning, horses are naturally much quieter than in the afternoon. So I'd pick my times, for example. First thing in the morning, I knew they were all going to snooze. And my guys know how to, I can ask them to lie down. So I knew it was coming up. So I'd wait till they started to want to lie down. And I could ask the others to lie down in certain places. And then I could ask the new ones to lie down. They're like, oh, okay, everyone else is dropping like flies, I will. So I quite quickly had a lie down cue for one of the wild ponies. And then I could sit on him while he was lying down and things like that. And it just became a sort of copycat thing, if you like. So they'd copy what my other ponies did. And then I'd start giving cues and buttons until I could develop a way of being able to actually get on and ride him. And then I could ride them. I rode them around the island and could walk and trot. And when I wanted to trot, that was quite interesting. The first time I was trying to work out how I could get a safe trot, because obviously I didn't want to just... I knew if you have a mistake on a horse, you know, they never forgive you. Like they do forgive you, but they don't forget. So I didn't want him to like trot and then get frightened and butt me off because I had no way of being able to fix it. If, you know, that ever happened, I couldn't just, you know, put a head collar on and hold on to him and say, no, it's fine. I had to make sure it didn't frighten him. So I squished him in the middle and had him next to one of my very experienced ponies, so that I knew that then if I could control that one's cues while sitting on the young one. So I'm telling the one next to me, Atlantis, I'm telling him to trot. So he's then trotting and dragging this pony that I'm sat on. So I got my first trot. And obviously when I breathed out and stopped, the trained pony stopped without me being on him or touching him. So then the young pony that I was on stopped as well. So then I could have my first few trots like that and things like that. So you just find a way of being able to sort of communicate. And they got really good. They're really good. And they still live with me now.
So just to like get a little bit better picture. So, when you went on this island, so you didn't have, halters and anything to kind of, or a little whip or some kind of training tools. Was it just sort of you and then the horses and you just jumped on them sort of?
Yeah, so I had my schooling stick. So I had a stick with me, but I didn't have any halters or anything like that. Because my Liberty, it was a bit annoying really, because I had my Liberty team were already trained using the stick from the ground. So, when I came up with the island, I didn't have time to retrain them to not need the stick. So they already knew the stick was a cue to follow me, and they knew it as a cue. So I kind of didn't want to just abandon that because obviously I hadn't thought it through to the point of thinking, oh, well, it would look better if I didn't. So I hadn't trained them for that. It didn't really occur to me. So I had my stick with me, but I had no head collar or rope or anything else.
And how long did you spend on this island, and how long roughly did it take you to get these young babies so that you could ride them?
I think I sat on them on about day 3, I think, being on the island. But then it's a really wet and windy place, Connemara. It often rains a lot. So I knew I had to, make hay when the sun shined. So when it was warm and sunny, I'd really, try and crack on. And then when it was wet and windy, I knew I was pretty limited as to what I could do. And I was on the island in total for a month.
And did you need some kind of special permission to be on this island?
Yeah, it was a privately owned island that I rented because I was making a film out of it. It was important, for the production company and everything else that it was, rented by me. So I had it all to myself, which was great.
As far as the film, how did this happen? Like, had you contacted them and just pitched your idea, and how did this process work?
Well, I really enjoyed doing camera work anyway, so I was kind of pretty determined I was going to do it. And I teamed up with a production company, and then they said, oh, how about contacting the BBC and seeing if they would like to get involved. So I had a meeting with the BBC set up, and I went up to talk to them. And actually, originally, the plan wasn't that I was going to fish for my own food. I was going to take dried food with me. But when you're sat in a meeting with somebody opposite you on a table and they're wanting you to say something, like we talk about reading horses, but you can read people as well. So I could tell that's what he wanted me to say. So I found myself letting it come out of my mouth. I was like, yes, of course I'm going to fish for my own food, and I'll find all my own cockles and fish, and I'm going to go spearfishing, having never done it before, because I knew that's what he wanted me to say. Anyway, they commissioned it, and so it went on the BBC as well. So that was
you're,
part of that.
You're saying like, oh, well, I teamed up with them. What does that mean? How do you, you're a horse trainer. Do you have film experience? Did you study film? And then you just kind of message them one day, or, how?
Well, I'm quite creative. So it kind of, I'm quite good at telling stories with horses anyway. So but this is quite a while ago, isn't it now? So I already had quite a good few YouTube videos that had a lot of views, and I'd already done quite a few funny videos that got sort of a few million views. And, I like making, telling stories of my horses. So in that sense, I'd already got a bit of a reputation for being able to create creative content. And I already had some really good sponsors as well who were happy to help fund it and wanted to get behind it and sponsor me. So I already had quite a good backing behind me before then. So it didn't really matter whether the BBC went for it or not. I was always going to do it. But obviously, when they came on board as well, it gave it a whole nother level, which was amazing.
So do you have any advice for other horsey girls out there doing film that want to get into YouTube or something? How can they grow their horsey projects, their fun horsey things online so that they can do something similar like you?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I think it's great. I mean, there's so much out there to do, isn't there? I would say the most important thing is to be good and correct always with your horses. You know, it's very easy to see through fakeness. You know, I mean, I love the Liberty work, but you know, now I see some things and they make me really sad, because I think, well, I can see that horse is just whip shy, or you know, it's just really frightened of you, and you know, and so be kind always to the horses and make that shine through whatever you want to do. And then the second thing is be original. You know, you have to be original. If you're not original, if you're just copying other people's ideas, then you know, you're only going to get so far, aren't you? So dream up something yourself, something that you really, really want to do, and then do that. Don't look at what other people do. I mean, I've never had any lessons in horsemanship or Liberty or anything like that ever in my whole life, and I don't want to, because I really enjoy the challenge, and I feel like then I'm being original and authentic to my own journey, if you like, an own path with horses. I'm not just copying somebody else. So yeah, that's what I would say. Do that. And laugh a lot.
Yeah. Do you have any, I guess, maybe technical advice for them, in the sense of how do they, so they have great content, they're doing all of the right stuff, they're laughing, they're amazing, but nobody's watching it. You know, how do they promote themselves, let's say? How do they get 1 million views?
Yeah, that's a really tricky one. I'm not entirely sure, because I mean, you know, some videos do go a lot better than others. You know, I mean, I think if your content is good enough, it'll always get views. If it's not, you know, if it's not interesting or wow, I mean, they kind of have to be, you know, the horse ethical side of it has to be first, and then it has to be really good content, doesn't it? I mean, then it doesn't matter how well it's filmed, particularly. I mean, if you've got something that's people want to watch, they're going to watch it anyway, aren't they? And as you do more, you obviously get better at filming, and you can get better cameras and things like that. I mean, I've been doing it for quite a long time now, so it's been a slow process. It's not like I suddenly woke up and went, great, I'm going to do this, and I got, you know, lots and lots of followers or anything. It's a slow process, and I'm always having to, you know, come up with ideas, and you know, it's every day I'm always trying to think of different things to do. Luckily, you know, I'm quite a creative person, so it happens. I've got like a zillion ideas. I just have to have the time to do them. But if you're trying to grow, you just have to keep doing it and keep doing it. Yeah.
So you're on this island, and you said you're there for a month. Did you have any really challenges or moments where you were like, what am I doing? Why am I here?
Well, the weather was pretty awful, to be fair. It did rain a huge amount of time, so my tent leaked like a sieve. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't easy, don't get me wrong. Just because I'm happy and enjoying myself, it wasn't easy. It was pretty tough. I mean, I lost like 1.5 stone. I was pretty skinny when I came off, and it wasn't easy, but it was just brilliant. Like I can't say anything really particularly challenging in terms of, you know, it went so much better than I expected, and it was just like reading a really good story that you'd never want to end. You know, you want to know how it ends, but you don't want it to end, and that's exactly how the project felt. And I, to this day, you know, I still can't ever recreate that feeling of being able to back a horse like that, you know, because there's always a fence, there's always an arena, there's always a round pen, or there's always some sort of restriction, whereas there it was total freedom. To me, it was the perfect, purest challenge, and yeah, I loved it, and it kind of set the bar really high for them following up adventures after that.
And what was your daily sort of routine like? I mean, I guess you have to hunt because you're hungry, and then you're spending all day with the horses, or what was your schedule like?
Okay, so my schedule was totally dictated to by the weather, and well, the weather, the horses, and the tide were the three things. So obviously when the tide was out, I could go cockling and go and get cockles and mussels, and I found one oyster, and so I'd go foraging for food, whatever time that was. So it didn't matter if it was 2 a.m. or whatever the tide. Whenever it was low tide, I had to go and try and catch food, because like cockles need 8 hours to purge, otherwise they're just full of sand, and things like that. So I had to sort of be on that, because obviously I needed to eat. And then the second big part of it was, you know, using the horses what they like to do when in the day. So like in the early evenings, I might ride my trained team ponies, but I would never try and work with the young horses, because they were always much more lively and much more inclined to be hooning around and playing and fighting. things like that. So I would usually try and work with the ponies first thing in the morning because they'd always want to go to sleep. So it seemed like a great time to be getting on. And I'd already learnt that from backing young horses for people back home. I would always get on them first thing in the morning and let them be in the field in the evenings. So I kind of already knew that. So that was kind of how my day got structured, really, was by that. And then the rest of the time, filming takes a huge amount of time because, you think just like walking from A to B is not just walking from A to B because you have to film it 3 times. So you set up the camera, then you walk past trying to look natural, like you haven't just done it already. And then you put the camera in front of you and you go back and then you try and walk in exactly the same way. Again, they're trying to look really natural. And then, you see every shot has to have a 3-shot camera angle so that you can cut between them. So it takes a long time, when you're setting up the camera even to go out fishing, spearfishing, say. So I had to have my GoPros on my head, make sure they're all working. And I had a solar panel for charging cameras and things. And then you'd have to have the camera set up on the beach, filming you go in the water. And then you have to go in the water. Then you have to come back out again. And then turn your GoPro on and go back in because else you'd get the tripod on the camera. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of, there's a lot going on. And the same for coming out. So if you catch something, you have to come out with it with your GoPro and then you have to go back in again, take the GoPro off, go back in the water and come back out again. So, it took a long time, put it that way.
And how does that work?
That's what makes it good.
But with the horses, especially with the young ones, let's say a moment happens, but, you can't redo that moment from all angles, or how are you managing the camera stuff by yourself with the young ones?
Yeah, so I knew I could use my team horses quite a lot, so I could drag the new horses, if you like, to where I wanted them to be by riding the others there. So I could use them as like magnets. I could sort of pull them like that rather than needing a lead rope. So I could get them to where I wanted them to film, if you know what I mean. And, if they didn't come, it kind of added to the challenge. And I knew they always would because I had one mare with me. So I had one mare and 3 geldings. So I knew she would always act like a honeypot. So if I then rode her, and took them over to the other side of the island, I knew the boys would come. So that kind of worked well. And then I just would try and do the same thing with the camera. I'd try and do exactly the same thing 3 times for 3 different angles. If I could, if I couldn't, I couldn't. But I tried to, sort of thing.
And what happens after you leave the island and you get back to the real world?
Yeah, that's the bit that's really hard because you come back and you get home and your whole life, it feels like everything leading up to it took a year to plan and prepare, and then you get home and everyone's kind of, I don't know, it feels like everyone sort of disappears. You kind of suddenly back home and it's all back to normal, and it's almost like you've never done it because you've just literally just walked back into your old life and the only thing that's changed is you. So that kind of was, so that's quite a big thing. And to be honest, I got sort of quite depressed after the island. I was really down, and it took a lot of checkups from the neck up to pull myself out of that one. And I really needed another adventure. So, of course, then I just planned another adventure to help me with that. But, yeah, it was tough coming back home, for sure.
I definitely know the feeling. I know I've, gone back to America after some big, huge adventure. And, when you just really want to share your experience with others, and they kind of pretend to be interested for, a few minutes or, 20 minutes. And then after that, they're, talking about normal things. And it's just this really out-of-body experience, oh my gosh, this is what normal people are talking about, So
it really is, and it was just weird, isn't it? Because you can't explain. It's hard to explain the feeling, but it's really odd.
It is,
and I get it every time after a trip. It's, which is kind of okay now, but then it was it was really sad.
Yeah, definitely. So what were your other adventures? And I know you just got back from a really crazy one.
Yeah, so my next adventure after that was I took 2 unbacked Highland ponies, and I didn't have any of my team ponies, and I wanted to see if I could cross the Highlands of Scotland, back these 2 ponies and be able to ride at liberty, bareback and maneless, by the time I got to the other coast. So I started on the east coast, and I had a week, and I wanted to be able to see if I could ride them, by the end, if you know what I mean, whilst crossing Scotland. So that was my challenge.
And how did that go?
And the midges were horrendous. The midges are awful. Oh my gosh. I was like, oh yeah, they'll be fine. How hard can bugs be? I've survived on an island. Oh my god, they were horrendous. The bugs and ticks were particularly pleasant because I carried everything. So I had to carry my camera kit. My rucksack weighed a ton. So again, there was a lot of challenges that you wouldn't necessarily think were challenging. And Highland ponies are known for being really stubborn. And I'm sure there's people out there going, no, they're not, but they are. Trust me. So their thing is a little bit like a donkey. If they don't like something or don't know something, they just stand still. So from the moment I set off, I didn't know these ponies at all. I bought them and I picked them up literally like 2 days before we started. So they hadn't ever had head collars, they hadn't been led, they didn't have anything. So I set off from the coast and I think I went about 30 centimetres. I think one horse took one step and then they both stood there and they were like, nope. So I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be a long 100 miles. And then we sort of went from there. So I was training them as I went, and then it was really cool. It was really cool seeing how it was a different kind of adventure to the island because obviously I was traveling, and every step I went was new to us all. So that was kind of cool. And it took about 3 or 4 days to get going, really. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is never going to happen. I've only got sort of 7 days to get to the other side, and I was like I think it was literally day 3 or day 3, and I still hadn't really felt like I'd done anything with them, or I wasn't getting very far, and then all of a sudden I found a bossy, and I went in the bossy and there was nobody there, and it was a really sort of big open bossy, and I thought, I'm going to bring the ponies in as well because the midgies are really horrible. So I brought the ponies into the bossy with me, and they really liked me after that. I lit a fire and we were nice and warm and we didn't get eaten by midgies. And then it was like a light bulb moment. They were like, yeah, we like you. And so from then on I could ride them. They were great. And over the next few days then I rode them. I never rode them with my rucksack because it was just ridiculously heavy. I couldn't even get on with it. So I'd ride them and then I'd have to run back. So I'd leave them grazing and I'd run back to go and get it, or I'd take them back with me, depending on how far it was, and get my rucksack and catch up. We were a real team by the end, and I could ride them without any tack, and we crossed some crazy terrain like the bogs and rivers and things. Were just amazing. It was brilliant fun, but it was definitely a moment of experience for learning that even when you think it's not working, if you just hang in there long enough with a smile on your face and a bit of determination, that it'll turn out all good in the end. And it was really cool. It was really fun.
And did you have halters with these ones? Were you like kind of ponying one, or?
Yeah, so I had halters for them, but the idea was obviously to try and lose the halters, so to be able to ride them loose without anything by the end. So that was the challenge rather than the other way around, if you know what I mean. And
did you complete your challenge?
Yeah, I did. It was really good. It was really cool, and especially as I thought I wouldn't. I did ride them.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, these ideas that you're coming up with are pretty different. How are you coming up with these ideas?
So I think for me, what it is that when I swing my leg over a horse, or I work with a horse, or I'm on the ground, or I'm doing liberty, or I'm leading a horse, I want the horse that I'm working with to think that I'm okay. I want to always have the horse's best interests. I don't want it ever to be just for me. I don't want to feel like I've used them. I want it to feel like a partnership. And I want to, when I get off, I want the horse to still or leave them. I want the horses to turn around and look at me and be like, hey, where are you going? What about us? Or, and that's for me the attraction of the liberty, because, if I ever went into the field and the horse ever turned his bum on me or walked away, or even just like turned their head away, I'd be mortified. I mean, that is like the horse saying, you can do well. So for me, whatever I do, whatever challenge it is, the most important thing is that relationship with my horses, is that we have this friendship thing that we can, or a partnership, that we can do these things together. So, for example, when I was crossing the Highlands, I tried to do what they wanted to do. So again, we travelled more so before I went, I put trackers on my ponies back home, and I was measuring how many miles they like to go in a day, when they like to sleep, when they're most active. And I charted this for quite a long time, maybe 6 or 7 months before I did my Highland adventure. And then I mimicked that because I had 3-year-olds. So I mimicked what they like to do. So then I felt like then I was I already had a little bit of knowledge of perhaps what a 3-year-old might like to do when. So they're like, they were active, at certain times of the day, and they slept for like these periods of time. And I think that kind of really helped, because it made me not be too human about it. It wasn't too demanding. I wasn't like, oh, right, look, it's 9 o'clock, let's go. And so that, I think that helps. And yeah, we were good friends by the end. And with all the horses, for me, being their friend is just really important. And, they are such giving creatures, but they can't talk. So the only way they can talk is with their actions, isn't it? So if you don't have any tack on, you can't hide any action, can you? Because, well, they can just do what they like. And so that's kind of where I come from with the adventures that I do.
And I find it really
Hence the last
interesting. Yeah, I mean, so you started with eventing, and I've worked a lot at show jumping stables and with competition horses, and I know from experience, unfortunately, how much gadgets people are using, and they're trying to fix everything with stronger bits or, this or that. And so you came from eventing, and, to go from, I guess, that competition environment where everyone's trying to do stuff with the horses, put them round and like this, and then to just go completely the other way and say, I want to go liberty, and, they should like me because they like me. How did you make that shift? And then how did you kind of, like you said, you didn't have any lessons about how to do this liberty stuff. So how did you go from there to there?
Yeah, okay, so I got, so horses, when I was training horses, they would obviously come. And anyway, I bought a horse that was off a lady really cheap as a personal project, because he was really naughty, really talented, but really, really naughty. He was napping, he'd flip right over backwards, and he'd been sent home from a top event rider, and yeah, anyway. And I got on really well with him and had a great time with him. And the lady then rang me and said, oh, I've got this stallion. I don't suppose you would event him for me? And I was like, oh God, really? But I really needed the money. So, I was quite skint at the time, and well, I'm skint most of the time, but like most horse people. But I remember thinking, well, I've just got to, I need the work. And he was 17.2, warm blood cross thoroughbred. So really big chap, really big. And he arrived, and I sat on the fence, and I was watching him in the field. And he'd been running with mares since he was a 2-year-old. I think he was 5 or 6 when he came to me. So he knew what covering was. I was like, how on earth am I going to event this horse? Because he's quite scary, to be honest. And I remember thinking, right, I'm just going to make him really happy, so that if I make him really happy, then he might like me, and then we'll get on really well. And so he lived with mares, and he had lots of foals. So to go eventing, I would I liked him living with his mares because it made him happy. So 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm out there with my head torch trying to find him amongst these mares and foals. And, I'd pull him out 3 a.m, bath him, take him to the event. And one time, actually, I took him to an event, and somebody wanted a mare covered. And they were sort of en route. I live in the West Country, so everywhere's a long way. And I thought, oh, well, it's on the way. I'll call in on the way. So I had him all plaited up. I bathed him, had him all plaited up. And he's 17 too. And put him on the lorry, ready to go. And called in at this yard, let him jump on the mare, covered the mare, went eventing. He came third, I think, at the horse trials. I came home. On the way home, we stopped off and covered the mare again. And then he went back out in the field with his friends again. And I learned so much from that one horse about how to, as a human, how to look at a horse and think, what can I do for you? Not just what can you do for me? And I think that kind of being able to build credits with a horse, a bit like your mobile phone, if it's got credit, it'll work. I think it's the same with horses. I'm consciously always trying to think of how can I build my credit pot. How many credits have I put in my pot? How happy are my horses? Can I do anything more for them to make them that bit happier? So that then when I say, oh look, hey, can we do this together? Can you jump that skinny fence over there for me? And then you can go back to your mares and foals. That they do. And we had this amazing partnership with him. He'd literally do, I still have him now. He'd do anything I ask him at liberty in the field. I could ride him bareback and reinless with his mares and foals, and the foals would like canter around behind me, biting his hocks, and click my fingers and they'd lie on the floor, and he could jump on, because obviously I'm not athletic enough to jump on from the floor. It was just an amazing friendship, and he taught me a huge amount about herds, and he set that fire in me about wanting to be able to understand that relationship and being able to work with more than one horse at a time. And the first time I ever saw that is obviously in a mare and foal. When a foal obviously trots along, although its mare trots off, mother trots off, the foal sticks along, doesn't it, on its side alongside them. And that's how I learned how to do the Liberty teamwork. Was I thought, okay, well, they did it when they were a foal. They can understand, they know what it is. I just have to find a way of being able to communicate that that's what I would like them to do again. And if you build these credits with horses, you know, that they just look at you like, well, what can we do? You know, what's the point? What's the question? And you can create such a nice relationship with horses that they can just answer yes to whatever the question.
And do you have some advice for, I know there's probably a lot of people interested in trying, let's apply it more towards riding, because I think a lot of people are nervous to sit on their horse without a bridle and without a saddle, and to just, you know, they might have that fear of, oh, well, what if he bucks, or what if he bolts, or, you know, a lot of fears might be holding people back from even trying. So what advice do you have for something like that?
I think the best bit of advice I would say would be, you know, to know yourself first. I mean, if you feel like that, then definitely don't take the reins off. You know, if you know the horse, you know, really well, and you have a fantastic partnership, then you know by the time you want to take the reins off, you know they wouldn't do that to you anyway. So that would be how I would start. You know, I wouldn't, if I got on a horse and thought he might buck me off or bolt or do something, you know, there's no way I would take the tack off. I would keep working on that relationship until, you know, like that very first horse I sat on that said, for goodness sake, can you get on and ride me? So I would work through stuff and work and improve my relationship and work through different experiences and different environments until that horse is saying, look, for goodness sake, you don't actually need the reins anymore or the saddle. You know, get off, you know, you take it off. And it isn't that difficult. It's just that most people quit too early. You know, they give up. And sometimes my sessions with horses would be, you know, for literally 2 or 3 minutes, and I would go, yeah, that was cool, great, brilliant. And then I might do something else with them later in the day, or I might, you know, you have to reward the try so that they keep wanting to try for you. It's no good just thinking, right, I'm going to train you for an hour. To me, that doesn't really make a lot of sense for a horse. Because, you know, you think they're learning something every hour of every day. Well, that's 24 hours a day. If you're any part of that conversation for 1 hour, that's 23 other hours they're learning something. So I try and make them much more part of my everyday. Whether I'm riding one, I might be doing something with the other ones. I might, like now, if I'm riding one, I might have 2 or 3 others just parked up over there. At Liberty, I might just teach them to stay and get them to stay there for a while. And, you know, it's all a game. I just try and make it a fun game. And just enjoy trying to work out the puzzle, work out the pieces that you need to create the picture that you're trying to create.
Perfect. Yes, very good advice. And so your most recent adventure, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so that one I think is probably up there with my most crazy adventure. I really wanted to do an adventure that didn't involve the horse having to do any work at all. Okay, because, you know, humans have used horses for, you know, forever, haven't they? Let's face it, we've used them, which is great. You know, they are amazingly giving animals, and not saying there's anything wrong with that in the slightest. But I really wanted to do something that involved them using me. So I thought, I know what I'd do. I would put 2 little shetlands in the back of a tricycle and cycle them across Europe. Does it seem like a really, really good idea? I thought I'd have a summer body by the end of it, and my ponies would think I was great because all they had to do was eat and sleep and get cuddled, stroked a lot in the sunshine. And that's kind of pretty much, you know, how it went. Except for the fact that it was really urban. But yeah, it was a crazy idea.
So where did you start and where did you finish?
So the journey started right on the Swiss-French border, basically. And we started it in Basel. And then I followed the Rhine most of the way. I went rogue a few times just because some of the cities were a bit just, you know, when you're cycling through a city and you have a tram on one side of you with everybody on the tram videoing and photographing you on their smartphone, and then a bus the other side of you with you sandwiched in the middle with two ponies with their little heads sticking out and my little dog on the shelf. You think, this is possibly not the place I'm supposed to be with horses. So yes, so it was kind of quite crazy. But we followed the Rhine River because it was nice and flat, which obviously for the ponies and me was an incentive. And then it took, how long did it take? Just over 3.5 weeks, I think. We did over 1,000 kilometres. It was like 1,034 kilometres or something like that in total.
Wow, 1,000 kilometres with two little ponies in the bag. You must be very fit.
Well, it was great. Yeah, I did feel really strong by the end. But their ponies were brilliant. They were so fun. And it was really, really cool having to be completely the power behind it, And I think the most important thing for me was I just wanted to make people smile about horses. When you're out on the road, lots of people don't smile at horses anymore, do they? They frown at you, they hoot at you until you get off the road. They don't necessarily like seeing horses on the road anymore. And it's kind of, it to me felt like we'd forgotten how to just laugh and smile. And I thought, right, I'm going to just take these ponies because they're really cute, ridiculously cute. And everybody smiles. You can't help it. Even if you're in a really, really bad mood, you see the ponies in the trike, everyone smiles. And the entire way, I didn't have anybody who didn't smile at us, because it's it's an amazing thing to be able to influence people like that. Most of my adventures, I'm off on my own with my horses, which is how I like it. But this time it was like very much putting myself into the human world and saying, horses are cool, look what they can do for you. Just look at them and they make you smile. And isn't that therapy in its own right? I mean, that's what we all need, isn't it, in our lives, is for everyone needs to smile. So that was the idea behind it. And then we raised £2,500 for the Brook charity as well, which is really cool. Which obviously helps working horses, so horses that actually have to do the pulling of the cart.
And were people, I don't know, stopping you in the street and wanting to pet the ponies and?
All the time, yeah. I had one slight issue was some people wanted to high five the ponies. I don't know quite where the logic came from with this, but high-fiving a pony wasn't really a winner. So poor Percy got doofed around the face a few times, and then I realised obviously what was happening and stuck my arm out. And so every time anyone went past, I'd dive my hand out some sort of comedy sketch, trying to high-five me, not my horse's face, because that's really weird. Why would you do that? Because people, where the places I was, people hadn't even seen horses before. They were, this is a lot of it was really in cities and over motorways and through tunnels and along train things, so it was really urban. But the ponies would only ever do an hour and a half, and then I'd stop and then get them out, and they'd have grass and a sleep, and take them for a walk, go and find some more people to say hello to, and just enjoy seeing part of Europe. It was great to not be at home, and I didn't know the ponies; they were new to me, so it was great to sort of get to know them a little bit more. And yeah, it was a totally surreal feeling of an adventure.
And do you have any other adventures planned, or are you still thinking of the next one?
A little bit like you. I bet you just have loads, isn't there? I bet there's loads of things you want to do. I just have a list as long as my arm. So yeah, it's really hard to pick what's next, as it kind of, I have to work as well in the middle. So I'm enjoying it at the moment. I'm back home and making funny videos, creative story videos with my ponies, and that's really good. I love doing that. And then I take people off on adventure holidays as well. So we take my Connemara's and my Irish donkeys and my miniature shetlands back to Ireland, and I rent another island in Ireland for people to have that island experience that I did, basically. So I do that for a month in September. And then we're on tour with all the ponies doing demonstrations around the country in November. So, yeah, trying to fit another one in is a challenge. But, yeah, I've got plenty more, and I might sneak off for a short one in between.
Perfect. So where can people follow you or find some of your films, or where can we find you?
Oh, well, it would be brilliant. If people would like to follow me, that would be amazing. And Facebook is probably my first port of call. Facebook and YouTube. I'm a bit rubbish on Instagram, to be fair. I try and do Instagram, and then feel like I've done too much social media. But yeah, I am on Instagram. But yeah, that would be great.
And what's your Facebook name?
I think it's just my name. I think Emma Massingale is, if you search that, I'm sure I will pop up on any of the social media channels.
And what about these films that you've been making? Is there a way that we can watch these?
Yeah, so all of the films are available on my website, so that you can download them. And some of them are free on YouTube anyway, so you can find them on YouTube. And some of them are ones I've done in partnership and collaboration with production companies, are on my website that are available to download.
Perfect. So I will include all of those links in the show notes for this episode. I hate that I have to stop because you're just so interesting. But thank you very much for coming on and sharing your stories with us.
Oh, well, thank you ever so much for having me. It's been great to chat to you.
You have been listening to the Equestrian Adventuresses podcast. Please subscribe to our channel and check out our website, equestrianadventuresses.com, for links to the show notes. Leave us a review and consider becoming a premium member for bonus episodes and footage. More information can be found on our website. Until next time, Adventuresses, happy trails.